We are live.
So,
Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody to Paris and Beyond Tours. Today we are at the neighborhood, the Marais, one of the most trendy, hip, lively neighborhoods in Paris, but it is also the oldest preserved neighborhood. So today we want to take you on a virtual tour focusing on its rich history and its beautiful architecture, and explore why this neighborhood, the Marais, the marshland, was transformed into this magnificent neighborhood that we see today. And in the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to take you to visit the square we are at, Place de Vosges, and Hotel de Sully, Church St. Paul, and finishing at Rue des Rosiers. So, if you are not familiar with us yet, bonjour.
hi everyone,
My name is Josephine.
and my name is Ferret.
We're the Paris and Beyond Tours, and we've been tour guides in Paris since 2015. And because of pandemic, we thought this would be a great way to reconnect with you all through our virtual activities. And thanks to your generous donations and support and gifts. Well, thank you Lynn and John for sending us this very lovely and comfortable masks that we continue to bring Paris to you virtually today. So let us know where you're connecting from. We see Caroline,
California.
Ricky, Trolley, Melanie, Lynn and John. So welcome. Please tell us your names and where you're connecting from. All right, let's get started.
And at any moment, if you want, you can ask a question on the chat. We're going to be together with Josephine. We can answer these questions. So we're going to start our walk around Place des Vosges. And the first thing first, right? Hi, to the Philippines. So this is one of the most important squares of Paris. So what you see today is the last version of it, with the trees, the kids playing around, people coming to get a tan on a Sunday. But to be honest with you, they also come during the week at lunchtime to get this tan. This is a lovely square, fountains. Everybody loves to come here. So much so that even Victor Hugo had an apartment here. Many famous people have had their apartment in their buildings around. So this is called La Place des Vosges. This is one of the places, the most important places of the Marais, as I said. And this Place des Vosges is fairly recent in the history of Paris. It dates from the 1600s, the beginning of the 1600s. This is the equivalent of the Champs-Élysées. You may have seen the Champs-Élysées, right? This is where we do the 14th of July, the National Day of France, the walk, the military parade. And in the 1900s, people had to walk through the Champs-Élysées when they were famous. And here was the same thing. 1600s, 1610s, you have to go through the Place des Vosges when you're an important person. You walk around, people can see you if you're an ambassador. You cross Paris, and then when Versailles is going to be built, you go to Versailles. Before that, you go to the Louvre. So it's a charming square. And as you can see, all the buildings look alike. They are all made in the same way. I Florida, I Athens, I England. So you see all the buildings look alike. And the man who designed this, who asked for this, is called Henry IV of France. So Henry IV of France is a Protestant king who became Catholic. He changed several times in his life. He ruled at the very end of the 1600s, 1598. There is a famous edict that he wrote, which is the Edict of Nantes, which allowed Protestants to practice their faith in freedom in France.
Isn't he the greatest king, the most beloved king of France, who ended the 30 years religious wars, who famously said Paris is well worth a mass, and converted into Catholicism so he could rule France legitimately, right?
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah, he's the one also famous for the chicken on the pot, because he was really generous with with his wealth as well for the people of France. People loved him here.
He was quite a builder king for France. He was the one who built the Pont Neuf, the first stone bridge, the oldest stone bridge, and Place Dauphine, and the longest gallery of the Louvre, the Grand Gallery. So he also wanted to build a royal square to provide a space for open ceremonies, to adorn Paris, to make it prettier, because there was no city planning before him. And he actually sold the building rights to different independent private contractors, and they were given very strict specifications to follow. Therefore, to create this harmonious facades. There are 36 pavilions. They all look very similar outside, 9 on each side, but inside it's different.
So the facade is something really interesting. And you may say, but they built up a square, but where did they have the room in this busy medieval city that Paris was to build this? Eventually, before being this Place des Vosges square, you had a horse market opened by Catherine of Medici. But why did she open a horse market here? At the very beginning, under the reign of Charles VI. Charles VI is a famous king. He is called the Mad as well. He is a crazy king during the 100 Years' War. He is the one who was about to give the kingdom of France to England upon his death. And there is a treaty between him and Edward III. So he was about to give the kingdom of France to England when Charles VII was saved by Joan of Arc. Kind of saved, and she helped him to get the crown. So really good. We have got the kings, these Valois, who are going to love an hotel here, which is called l'Hôtel des Tournelles. And something dramatic is going to happen in the 1500s. So there is a private hotel here, and there is enough room to ride your horse. And we have a king called Henry II. And what about Henry II? He is married to Catherine of Medici. And he's going to organize for one of his daughters a magnificent wedding on what was the hotel. And he's going to organize a jousting tournament. Victor Hugo, as I said, lived in one of the houses. This is the house at the very end over here, the last pavilion on the right side. And so Henry II organizes the tournament. The tournament goes well, he drinks a bit, it's a friendly thing. He's with his friends. And at the very end of the day, he wants to joust with his master of arms, the Count of Montgomery. So Montgomery actually is the ancestor of the General Montgomery, if you have heard of, during the Second World War. At the end of the day, he's tired. He's jousting the last time of the length of the master of arms, Montgomery, is going to end in the eye of Henry II. This is dramatic. He's going to die, and within 10 days. It's going to take 10 days. And it's not even because of the piece of wood that was stuck in his eye that he died. It's because of the infection surrounding it. There was a really famous surgeon at this moment. So we are end of the Renaissance, religious war, and there is a man called Ambroise Paré who is he's the private surgeon of that Henry II. And he is the one who invented how to sew these. Really an amazing man, but he was not amazing enough to save the king of France by removing that piece of wood. Just for you to know, we're just a throw away from Bastille. Bastille, you walk maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes that direction. So the Bastille used to be a jail in the past that was turned down during the French Revolution. And they're going to ask convicts to volunteer in order to stuck a piece of wood in their eyes and then get it out and try to see if we can train the surgeon with that. Of course, it's never going to work. They're all going to die, and the king is going to die. So by anger, because she was so much in love with that king, Catherine of Medici is going to destroy the entire hotel that was here, and she's going to open that horse market. And we have to wait 2 Henrys, Henry III and Henry IV, to open this magnificent square. This is the first planned square of Europe. These arcades are really beautiful, And this is one of the first arcades that you can see in Paris. Actually, it dates from 1612. And then it changed name twice.
Yeah. How about let's show a bit of a close-up how the square looks like. So this was really built as a royal place, wasn't it? Even though the kings didn't really live here, but it quickly became a fashionable place for the nobility. Nobilities who was anyone had an address in the Marais. The reason why you have such beautiful, imposing townhouses, these mansions. And so this was also used for ceremonies. 1612, when King Louis XIII, the father of the future Louis XIV, was engaged to Anne of Austria. There was this big inauguration party that lasted for 3 days in April 1612 here. The square was designed to host 60,000 people, but 70,000 people attended the party. Many of them camped out here the night before to ensure a spot. And some of them, according to one account, even had climbed all the way to the rooftops to get a view of the festivity. There was the horse show called the Grand Carousel. There was a play and just lots of joviality here. So this is why the square is named after Louis XIII, the man who was getting engaged, the father of the future Louis XIV. So we have a statue of him right here, peacefully in the shade. Let's have a closer look. Has anybody been to the Marais? Has anybody been to this place?
So just for you to know, this statue that was here originally was in bronze. And so it has been taken down during the French Revolution, and they restored this one in the 1830s, actually during the 1829, or during the Restoration. So after the French Revolution, we had Napoleon as a ruler, and this is the first empire. After the fall of Napoleon, we have 3 different kingdoms that came back. And they're the one who rebuilt all of these royal statues. The one of Louis XIII you see here, the one of Henry IV, that's not too far from in the middle of Pont Neuf, and so on and so on. So.
Yeah. Actually, many of our listeners have been here. Marisa, Karina, Renee, Lynn. So, what do you enjoy most here? Sitting in the shade, playing with the sand, just enjoying the world goes by, right? This is the perfect place to do that. And because this was such a beautiful square, right? Many of the houses also became museums, independent museums. We have the Picasso Museum nearby. Victor Hugo's house now is the museum for Victor Hugo. And nearby we also have the History of Paris Museum, the Carnavalet Museum.
Yeah.
Right? And also now, under the arcades, business continue to bloom. Lots of hip galleries.
Yeah, art galleries. This neighborhood is one of the best one if you want to buy art. Look at this.
Oh yes, Lynn says that she enjoys watching the fountain. Me too. I find these fountains beautiful.
So we are thrown in the middle of this late Renaissance in France. It's 1610. This is the beginning of what we call the Great Century. At the end of the century, Versailles is going to be built, and this square is going to lose a bit of its prestige as the nobility moves towards Versailles and wants to gain favors in Versailles. So this neighborhood is a bit left behind, and bit by bit the neighborhood of the Marais is going to decline.
And
this is what I was telling you.
This is why the name change took place. In 1800, we're in this new period of the French Republic.
The first French Republic.
And the first department in France who respected the tax system and who paid taxes to the new government was the Department of Vosges. And so in their honor, the Place Royale has been named Place de Vosges. So if you pay your taxes on time and early enough, you may just get a city named after you in France. Deb says this is beautiful and a very calm oasis in the city.
Yes, indeed. The Marais was at the verge of being completely wiped out from Paris. In the 1960s, the fashion is to build concrete buildings. We have several architects that will push towards this amazing construction in concrete all over the city. We, with Josephine, we live in one of these construction, which is called Olympiade, which was so modern at the time. And you will have a really influence of Le Corbusier to have these concrete cities. He wanted to erase the Latin Quarter as well, build in concrete. He wanted to erase the Orsay Museum and build a concrete hotel. And what's going to save really this neighborhood, there are several things together. Not too far from Châtelet, you have what we had called the belly of Paris, Les Halles. Oh, and some people love your shirt, Lapo.
Thank you.
Right?
I have to thank my husband for picking it for me.
Yeah, I'm not too bad at close speaking for others. So we had the Pavillon Baltard, which were the belly of Paris, where the biggest market of fresh supply for the city was, that were destroyed. After this, we decided to save parts of Paris, and even the Marais started just before that. It was in the vein. Just to in the 1960s, merely 30% of them had running water.
Yeah,
Merely,
60% of them actually did not have any toilets.
Yes, it was Renaissance, so you still have to use chamber pots and throw them in the morning at the bottom of your building to the sewers. It was really
crowded, rundown, and impoverished. Getting very industrial as well.
And
right?
several projects, the property developers wanted to erase this place to build modern buildings. And it's thanks to the concourse of several things. You have an association called the Paris Historique, who is going to organize a theater festival, just like in Avignon. And they are going to make it happen that stars of the time want to save the Marais. You have to remember that like people like D'Artagnan, the real one, was coming over around here, that great characters of literature, or Molière even, gave his first representation in the Marais. So they were all hanging out in here. So a lot of members of the theater community in France pushed to save it, and the Minister of Culture, called André Malraux, made sure that this was going to be saved. And this is the very first preserved area, historical area of France.
Yeah, and this is why the buildings that we saw that framed the square, they were all restored in 1966. Looking really good for 16th century mansions. So where are we now, Ferret?
We are in the Hôtel de Sully. So there were several Sully throughout the history. I won't go into the detail today. This one was the finance minister of Henry IV. You remember when we were on the square, we saw a lot of these buildings that look like this, with a mansard, right, with a steep rooftop, and we have the blue tiles at the top, a bit of limestone in the facade, but mostly bricks on the square. When you show the bricks, you show that you are using a material that is going to be cheap. So the king is paying for most of the pavilions. Some others are developed by private entrepreneurs or private owners or as nobles, but others are paid by the king. So he wants to show that he is close to his finance. His finance minister, Sully, is going to build himself next to the royal square an amazing little hotel. He's not going to enjoy it too long though. But this is actually, so you have the what is it called, the Place des Vosges, and then you have this Hôtel de Sully, which is quite amazing. It's mostly open from 1 to 6:30, and it's so peaceful here. Today, this is the headquarters of the National Monuments of France, and they have an amazing gift shop.
Lynn Crossley mentions how she loves the ornate street lights. Yes, I always find it so picturesque with the iron cast lights in the pictures.
So when you're here, you can recognize these symbols. You see these ladies in the bas-relief. There are two on this side, two on the other, and they represent the 4 seasons. So, can you guess what is she? Which season is she? Right, these two. Which season are they?
These two ladies, allegories for the season.
Yeah.
Let me guess.
Yeah, this one you see, she has flowers and a bird. What can that be?
Must be spring.
Yeah, that is spring. And on the right side, she's having a horn of abundance, and she's holding wheat.
Yeah, and there's something that she is stepping onto as well.
Yeah.
Right? That's wheat as well. And then her left foot is also stepping on a flask with, I would guess, I don't know, water or wine.
No, that's
flowing
water.
out.
That's water.
That's water?
Yeah,
This must be summer.
This is summer, and she's having the wheat and the wheat crown. So we're going to get inside. Let's see it. The upper windows, these ones, they're called the windows in attic.
So can you imagine the lucky people who live just in those houses with a view of the courtyard every day?
So we go to the other side. Have you ever seen a female sphinx? A sphinx. And then we go for the two other allegories.
Oh, I love sphinxes. We have a 4,600-year-old Egyptian sphinx in the Louvre Museum. And I love the story where the name comes from as well.
So you have an old man, this is for winter, and this is almost a Bacchus. You see he has grapes around his neck. So that's for fall.
That's for winemaking, isn't it?
Yeah, that's fall. Yeah, September. Up. This would be the court where you enter with your horses. You drop your horses, and then you're invited to go behind. When we're in the Marais, right? What does Marais means? The Marais means the swamp, because this was a swampy area. We are on the right bank of Paris. There is a dead arm of the Seine River that goes behind the Marais, and so this was always wet. A lot of these private hotels are built like this. So you see, we come from the street, we enter here, but because you build in limestone, the limestone is going to drink the humidity from underneath. So what you do is to dig a little bit deeper, and you build your caves over there. You have your cave, which becomes a cellar, and it has air inside. You can store everything. It's going to be a little bit wet. It's going to preserve your food. Then when you enter inside your home, the first floor is a bit elevated. You see, you have to get through the staircase we just came down from. So it's going to be a dry home. And so all these private hotels are built this way to preserve them from the humidity.
Many of you have been to Paris more than once. Has anybody ever stayed in this neighborhood? How was your experience?
By the way, so in that street, this is where Jim Morrison stayed when he was staying in Paris. And now we're going to take you to St. Paul, St. Louis before we go to the Rue des Rosiers. Any questions so far?
No, I think people are enjoying to see the beautiful architecture.
As you can see, all the restaurants have really reopened, fully reopened now.
Carlin says that she stayed over in an apartment at St. Catherine Square in Marais. How wonderful.
Oh, St. Catherine Square. I really love that little square. Maybe we can pass by as well. Actually, it's really close. You see these buildings that you don't see everywhere in Paris. This is what was built mostly in the Renaissance. They're all from the 1600s. Inside, it's wooden beams. You have a stone frame, and they are all. Some of them are leaning. You will often see buildings in Paris that lean towards the back at the top, and it's to prevent fires. And you can really compare these buildings to these ones. You see at the end, this is what we call the Haussmannian buildings, with rows of balconies at the second and the fifth floor.
Yeah, we also have a question from Renee. Restaurants are open, 100% open in Paris now. Yes.
Yeah, with a gauge, you have a bit less people allowed inside, but they are fully reopened. Just to tell you as well, since we are here, we have at the end of the street, when you turn to the right, there is a little place called the Village Saint-Paul. We're going to take you there when there is a huge flea market. There are permanent antiquity shops, but sometimes they organize huge flea markets over there. There's going to be a little free life next time. So it's a lovely neighborhood here. And you see these streets are not straight, they are following weird limits. It's because they follow what we call les coutures. So in the distant past, around the 1200, you had what we call the temple, and the Commanderie des Templiers, which is a huge castle, one of the highest dungeons of Europe at that moment. Maybe you have heard of the Knights Templar. They had one of their headquarters in Paris. And that headquarters was used then as a jail during the Revolution, where Marie Antoinette and Louis XVI stayed.
Lynn says that she visited the St. Paul's Village. She wanted to visit St. Paul's Village, but it was closed for renovation.
It's almost completely done, the renovation. We just walked in today, yeah.
We passed by it a couple of days ago. It's very impressive, beautiful work, quiet little hidden courtyards.
The lighting is so romantic.
We'll take you on another walk another time.
And so these Knight Templars, they were dividing, they were organizing a little bit the place, the streets around them, around the castle at least, because people wanted to be protected from them. You also had one of the walls of Paris, the wall of Philippe Auguste in 1200, that was like separating the inside and the outside of the city. So people were dividing the space for their little fields. And then the building, when the fields were sold, were following the limits drawn by these peasants growing vegetables. Maybe you also know the word maraichais, and so maraichais is the word for people selling vegetables in France. And it comes from this as well, because on swamps you can grow amazing vegetables, so marais, maraîchage, maraîcher. So Place du Marché Sainte-Catherine, it's a lovely little square, used to be a market as well here.
Carlene also asked, is the lovely cheese shop close to St. Paul still there? I believe it is, right?
So, off to St. Paul St. Louis? Yeah. Actually, I think you are talking about Laurent Dubois, which is a Meilleur Ouvrier de France. We mentioned them several times. And so a MOF. And this man is still open. He even expanded and bought the shop next to him. So it's even a bigger shop now. He has more variety in that shop. Now he has 3 or 4 branches in Paris. And he leads them. He has one cave that he sends the cheese everywhere to.
And Coquet said she was supposed to visit Paris in 2020 for business, but it was cancelled. So we hope to see many of you back soon in the future. Now, since June the 9th, French Borders is opened to travelers.
You don't want to be anybody. You want to be in Jobo. No, it's an amazing place.
So if you are vaccinated, you can show your proof of vaccination or the negative test results. You are free to visit France.
So this is St. Paul St. Louis Church. The man who inaugurated that church around 1627 is Richelieu, and even gave services in there. Richelieu is one of my favorite characters in the French history, influential, controversial. Some people say that D'Artagnan, one of the musketeers, was coming here to pray. I don't know if I can confirm that information, but I like to think that when I sit on a chair in there, D'Artagnan sat on the same chair. Before we get there, since someone asked about the cheese shop, I'm going to show you what the cheese shop we were talking about in the comments. So Laurent Dubois, because cheese is not only something that you make once and then it's over, it's something that evolves through time. And so these cheese keepers, sellers, they have to make sure that the cheese grows properly. So in the past, you only had that thing, and he bought the one next to him, thanks to the COVID situation, I guess, and he managed to link both of them. And so a cheese seller in France is supposed to make his own take on the cheeses. So you get a fourme d'Ambert. This is from the east part of France, a blue cheese, and he puts like a walnut inside. This is with quince paste with the blue cheese, traditional. Truffle Saint-Marcelin, Calvados fermented camembert, dipped in olive oils. I hope that you enjoy this. Let's get inside the church. If there is a service, I won't stay too long. And so this church was designed, it's a Jesuit church, and it's modeled after a famous church in Rome called the Gesù Church of Rome, Gesu. St. Paul is a tribute to the former parish that was nearby. St. Louis is because the man who mostly invested in it called Louis XIII, and he wanted to associate himself with St. Louis, the one who built the Saint Chapel in Paris. So many different things here are really interesting. When you come, these holy water dispensers are, actually there is one here, one on the other side. They're supposed to have been offered by Victor Hugo himself. His daughter wanted married here secretly, and he offered this to the priest to thank him. You can see it has a significant Italian influence because you have a dome right here. In France, we don't need the domes too much. We do it for beauty purposes. In Italy, because it's really much hotter in the summer, the domes are used to canalize the hot air at the very top and evacuate it. This altar is also really important because you see it's in the middle of the crossing between the nave and the transept. And before the Reform, before the Protestant Reform and the Catholic Counter-Reform, the altars were hidden behind rood screens, so you wouldn't see the altar. And it's after the Protestant Reform that we start to have, during the Counter-Reform, the altar shown in the center. I also want to show you this. La République Française ou la mort. And so this is during the Commune of Paris that this was set up here. This is a graffiti that dates from 1870, where people use this place as a last stand. You know, it took more than 13 years for the royal couple, Louis XIII and Austria, to have a son, Louis XIV. So they had to do something. And this is it. This is the veau of Louis XIII. And when he is going to dedicate his going to renew his oath to Our Lady, to Virgin Mary, to get a son, and you are going to see pietas offered to several churches in France, including Notre Dame. And so the one that you saw right now is St. Louis bending in front of the Holy Relics, and the same imagery is going to be used for Louis XIII later on. So where do you want to go now?
I need to speak closer to the mic. So, yeah. How are you guys enjoying this? Do you like the neighborhood? Anyone who's making this onto their list for your next visit to Paris? And maybe even renting an Airbnb here. It's a very popular area for Airbnb, isn't it?
Yes, and you have boutique hotels nearby.
Yeah.
It's really, I really like an hotel called the Caron de Beaumarchais. And it's a boutique, the tapestry next to it is really nice.
And if you are taking up an apartment with an amazing terrace or rooftop, don't forget to message us and we'll come over and do a live from your terrace.
Yeah, and have champagne as well. Right? Maybe a live is not enough, champagne is helping a lot.
This is really one of the most expensive area in Paris. I would probably not be able to afford it here. This would be renting an apartment, I would think something like 20 square meter would already be 1,500 euros a month.
No, maybe not 1,500,
No?
right?
I think so. Per square meter, it is going up to 12,000 euros per square meter and more.
Yeah,
So-
when you buy, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but you've got all this beautiful restaurants, terraces, museums, culture, galleries. I did not buy my Mondrian dress here though, so no worries. Let's see.
So right now we arrive at Rue des Rosiers, and we're going to stop this tour not too far from my favorite place to get the lemon pies. This is also the beginning of what we call the Plezzo, which is the Jewish neighborhood of Paris, one of the Jewish neighborhoods of Paris. And this Plezzo is mostly built up around the 1800s, mid-19th century, when pogroms were starting to be done in the Eastern Europe and Russia. So you have a huge community of Jews coming onto Paris in the 1850s here, and they are going to settle, they are going to be tailors. A lot of them are going to become tailors and support the growing industry of fashion in Paris. The birth of Paris as a capital of fashion is also because of these talented worksmen. Let's turn around.
Yep. So what's the name of the street again?
Rue des Rosiers, the Rose Tree Street. Hop. Rue des Rosiers. This is maybe one of my favorite tea shops around. It's called Le Loir dans la Théière. And they have got the very best lemon pie of Paris to me. Nobody has it on the table, normal. When you have it, you finish it. So it's lovely. Today, what I really like is that all these coffees and places have the right to open massive terraces onto the streets. But let's push a little bit further. We're going to end at the very entrance of the Jewish part of the Marais area, and maybe we are going to be able to talk about it next time so that we can focus really much more on that history. We are the crossing of Rue des Rosiers and Rue Pavée, so can you see that street name over here, which is the first paved street around the 1200s, and the king who asked the streets to be paved again is called Philippe Auguste. So the same man who built the first fortress of the Louvre and a huge wall around the city of Paris.
I think there are several things one must try on this street, isn't it? There's
You have got falafel.
the shop that we just it's always a queue outside.
Double the surface with these huge terraces taken onto the streets. There are many stories to tell here. Many stories about the Jewish community of Paris. And I would like to dedicate a special tour for them, for these stories and this community and these people.
Look at this beautiful building here. Just give it a slow hand detailed. Look at the beautiful lamp and the facade.
You have many shops that are important for the Jewish community here. Mortiano for the East breads. King Falafel. So when you come on a Saturday, and this is why this week we don't do it on a Saturday, we do it on a Sunday, because I wanted to have all the shops opened. When you come on a Saturday here, it's much more quiet because of Shabbat. You have several synagogues here. There is one just behind Place des Vosges, which actually has been designed by Gustav Eiffel for the rooftop. You have as well. No, désolé. Hop, the best falafel in town.
Ouais, juste pour Shabbat.
Has always been really busy, one of the favorite places of the Parisian to do shopping, because you know it's only recent that shops have the right to open on Sundays. Because of the Christian traditions of France, we don't work on Sundays. But because the Jewish community doesn't have the same closing days, then these streets and this neighborhood was always open on the Sundays. And it made it a famous neighborhood for everybody in Paris. The Hebraic Library, and we're going to stop in front of Chez Marais, one of the highlights of the neighborhood, with amazing antipasti and falafels.
Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Joining us today.
So next week, on next Saturday, we're going to take you on another walk from Opera House, the famous Opera Garnier House,
to Place Vendôme, passing by Concorde, and then we're going to finish between the Grand Palais and the Petit Palais, and in front of the Invalides. This is going to be our stories about the Imperial Paris.
Yeah, so make sure, mark this on your calendar. We'll see you next week on our YouTube channel, Saturday, for the walk. And for those of you who are planning to come to Paris, feel free to contact us to make your travel plans. We offer these free consultation time. And if you haven't liked our Facebook page called Paris and Beyond, or subscribe to our YouTube page, please do that. We rely on your support to continue our weekly program. And if you have ideas of which neighborhood you would like to see, please also write to us.
And it can make it into one of our live tours on the Saturdays.
Exactly. So thank you again, everybody. If you have any questions, let us know.
This is the moment. We are going to take a few minutes to answer all the other questions.
Let's see. Oh, Roberta says we too are great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Roberta.
Thank you, Vicky, Karina, Diana, Lynn. Thank you, Lynn, very much for your comments and your masks. And Diana says, thank you for this lovely Sunday stroll. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. And
see you next time on Paris and Beyond Tours.
yes, see you next Saturday.
Bye.
Au revoir.